Have you ever gotten that like creepy feeling when you're watching a movie and you're totally into the story, but then something happens, and it's just kind of blurs those lines between what's real and what's just make believe.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what we're diving into today, folks. The unsettling case of Tucker Reed. She's that young actress whose life took a turn, a turn straight out of a Hollywood thriller, really.
Wow.
And you guys have been amazing. You sent in a whole stack of material on this case. Court documents, news articles, even audio from Tucker's own cell phone. It's wild.
It
It's a
is.
story that will keep you guessing right till the very end.
What's so fascinating about this case, I think, is that it's not, just about a crime. It's
Yeah.
about, like family secrets,
Right.
simmering resentments, the power of perception,
Mhm.
and those cell phone recordings. I mean, they add a whole new dimension to the story, right? Letting us hear the raw emotions and the events sort of unraveling as they happen.
Yeah, it's amazing that we have these primary sources, really.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We're in rural Oregon. We're talking a family ranch. It's owned by Lori, Tucker's grandmother.
Okay.
Tucker lives there with her mother, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's tension. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Enter Shane Moore. Now, Shane's Tucker's estranged uncle.
Right.
And there's this long-standing dispute over who rightfully owns the ranch.
It's complicated.
Yeah, very complicated.
Well, at the heart of this conflict, I mean, there's this legal document. It's called a grant deed.
Right?
Basically, it's a document that transfers ownership of property.
Okay.
And the interpretation of this grant deed and the suspicions it fueled, that's really what sets this whole tragic chain of events in motion.
So it's not just like a family squabble. This is about like the future of the ranch itself.
Exactly.
Wow.
High stakes.
Yeah. And this is where things get really interesting. So you sent in this really chilling piece of evidence.
Oh, yeah.
It's a video that Tucker recorded on her cell phone the day of the shooting. It starts off seemingly normal. Like, see the family getting ready for the arrival of a notary, Carla. She's there to finalize the grant deed.
Right.
But the atmosphere is so thick with tension, you can practically feel it.
Yeah, you can just, feel it through the screen.
Yeah, it's palpable.
Yeah.
This video is crucial because it allows us to literally see the events unfold through Tucker's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's raw, it's unfiltered, it captures those small details that often get lost in official reports.
I mean, that's what makes it so valuable, right?
Absolutely.
It's like a direct window into what was happening.
Yeah, totally. And we see those small details start to escalate very quickly. So Kelly, Tucker's mother, she's clearly agitated about this whole grant deed situation.
Makes sense.
She confronts Carla, questioning whether her own mother, Lori, truly understands what she's signing. And then things take a very dramatic turn when Shane shows up outside the house.
Okay, this is where the video becomes incredibly important in analyzing what happens next.
Yeah.
So Tucker's initial claim was self-defense.
Right.
She alleged that she shot Shane to protect herself and her mother.
Right.
But the video, the video tells a different story.
It's really unsettling to watch.
Yeah.
So Shane is outside, right? He's looking in through the windows. He doesn't appear threatening or aggressive.
No.
But we hear Tucker urging her mother, pick up the gun. Pick up the gun. The camera pans to the front door as Shane enters, and you can hear Kelly's voice rise in anger.
Oh, wow.
And it's important to note here that while the audio is clear, we can't make out exactly what Shane is saying.
Got it.
But his body language, I mean, the way he enters the house, it doesn't suggest that he posed an immediate threat.
Right.
And then bang,
Oh, my gosh.
out of nowhere, the video shows Tucker shooting Shane. There's no warning,
Wow.
no visible sign of an attack from Shane.
Jeez.
Nothing that supports the self-defense narrative. It's shocking, to say the least.
That's intense.
Yeah.
So this is where the visual evidence directly contradicts Tucker's initial statements to the police.
Right.
The video, it paints a very different picture of the events leading up to the shooting.
Yeah.
And then there's that 911 call you sent in.
Oh, yeah.
It's equally disturbing.
Oh, that 911 call, it's chilling. You can hear Kelly's voice in the background while Shane's friend is desperately trying to perform CPR.
Oh, gosh.
But her reaction, I mean, it's strange to say the least.
it's almost detached, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
there's this lack of genuine panic or concern that's truly unsettling, especially given, the gravity of the situation.
Right.
Makes you question, her true intentions, how involved she was in all of this.
It's definitely a detail that sends shivers down your spine.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And to make things even more complicated, when we start, piecing together the testimonies from different witnesses,
Yeah.
well, the story gets even more tangled.
You got that right.
It does.
This is where, the case just transforms into this web of conflicting narratives, right? Kelly claims that Shane had been threatening her earlier that day, trying to steal the property.
Right.
But the grant deed itself, which you sent in,
Right.
that seems to contradict this.
It does, yeah. And even Lori, Tucker's grandmother,
Yeah.
she contradicts Kelly's claims.
Hmm.
She tells a different story. She's saying that Kelly told her that Shane was trying to cheat her out of her inheritance.
Oh, wow.
It's like everyone is playing a part.
Yeah.
It's hard to know who's being truthful.
It really is.
It is.
And then we have Kelly's own statement to the police immediately after the shooting, where she clearly says that, Shane intended to split the property between them.
Mhm.
So we're left with these inconsistencies, these
Yeah.
shifting stories that make it almost impossible to determine what truly motivated the shooting.
It's like a puzzle where the pieces they don't seem to fit,
You got it.
They don't fit.
They don't fit at all.
And speaking of playing a part, there's another layer to this story that we have to consider, Tucker's
Yeah.
acting skills.
Oh, that's a fascinating angle, isn't it?
Yeah.
It raises the question, could, her talent for portraying emotions, fear, distress, anger,
Right.
could it have influenced how people perceived her,
Yeah.
both during the investigation
Right.
and, later on in the courtroom?
Right.
Could she have used those skills to manipulate the situation? I mean, it's definitely something to think about.
It's certainly a thought-provoking aspect of the case.
Yeah.
We've seen how convincingly she embodies different characters in her film work. Yeah.
How easily she can slip into different personas.
Right.
So the question remains, could that have played a role in how people interpreted her actions on that fateful day? It's a question that looms large over this entire case, really.
It sure does. Yeah, it really gets to the heart of the case, doesn't it?
It does.
Some people who knew Tucker, from like the theater world,
Right.
they've actually expressed doubts.
Really?
Yeah, they've wondered, if maybe she was blurring the lines between her on-screen roles and her real life.
That's kind of a chilling thought,
It is.
especially when you consider the film she was cast in, right before the shooting.
Yeah.
From the dark. And it's the film's about a killer,
Oh, wow.
which adds this almost eerie layer of coincidence to this whole situation.
Yeah, the timing of that film role is, it adds another wrinkle to the story, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I mean, we have to, consider the psychological impact it might have had on Tucker.
I mean, was she immersed in a world of, simulated violence and manipulation,
Yeah.
both onset and off? Did those lines start to blur for her?
Right, right.
It's a question.
It's a fascinating psychological puzzle.
It is.
And then you sent in something that adds another twist to this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So there's more audio evidence than just, the cell phone video from the day of the shooting.
Okay.
There's a separate recording from Tucker's phone. And it continues for 9 minutes after she sets it down.
Wow.
9 minutes.
That 9 minutes of audio, it turns out to be incredibly revealing.
Yeah.
It captures, Tucker's reaction when she finds out that Shane is still alive after the shooting.
Right.
And what's striking is that there's no, relief in her voice.
Really?
No remorse, but rather this chilling sense of disappointment.
That's disturbing to hear.
Isn't it?
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
when you contrast it with, her later claims of fear and self-defense.
Right.
It seems to point to a very different motive altogether.
And there's another disturbing exchange captured in that audio.
What's that?
We hear Kelly, Tucker's mother, saying some truly horrifying things.
Like what?
She says, "Haven't you died yet, you piece of... Why aren't you dead yet?"
Oh, my God.
It's bone-chilling.
Wow.
And it raises serious questions about Kelly's role in all of this.
It's hard to listen to, for sure.
Yeah.
It paints a very dark picture of what was going on in that house.
It does.
And then to further complicate things, you also sent in audio of a 911 call that Shane made just hours before the shooting.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
In that call, Shane expresses fear, you know. He says he doesn't want any trouble with his sister,
Right.
and that Tucker had actually fired a gun earlier that morning.
Wow. So this call flips the script on the self-defense narrative.
Yeah.
Completely.
It does.
So instead of being the aggressor, Shane is actually the one calling for help.
Right.
He's afraid for his own safety.
Yeah, it really shifts our perspective on who might have been the real victim in this scenario, right?
It does, for sure.
It adds, another layer of complexity to the story,
Uh-huh.
raising doubts about the initial narrative that was presented.
Okay. So we have this tangled web of evidence,
Right.
conflicting statements, and then, of course, the long legal process begins to unfold.
Yeah, so Tucker is initially charged with manslaughter.
Okay.
But after the video evidence, comes to light,
Right.
a grand jury actually indicts her for murder.
Wow, that's a significant escalation of the charges.
It is.
Can you explain what that means, legally speaking,
Sure.
and what prompted this shift?
So manslaughter is a less serious charge than murder.
Right.
It usually implies, an unlawful killing without malice aforethought,
Okay.
meaning it wasn't premeditated.
Right.
The grand jury, after seeing the video evidence,
Yeah.
they clearly didn't buy the self-defense claim,
No.
and they felt there was, enough evidence to support a more serious charge of murder.
So the video was really the turning point in the case.
I think so.
And then after years of delays and legal proceedings, we reached the final chapter of the legal saga,
Yeah.
a plea deal.
Yeah.
So Tucker ends up pleading guilty to second-degree manslaughter,
Right.
a much lesser charge than the original murder indictment.
Yeah, and this outcome, it was understandably frustrating for, those who felt that justice wasn't served for Shane.
Right.
It raised a lot of questions about, whether the potential for a sympathetic jury, perhaps influenced by Tucker's acting abilities, played a role in the DA's decision to, offer a plea deal.
Well, the DA actually acknowledged the difficulty in, predicting how a jury would perceive Tucker, admitting that her acting skills could have swayed their judgment.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, could someone's ability to perform emotions really have an impact on the outcome of a legal case?
That's a disturbing possibility.
It is.
It makes you wonder about the fairness of the legal system.
Yeah.
When factors like that can come into play.
But even with the plea deal,
Yeah.
there are still, some unanswered questions,
Yeah.
particularly regarding Kelly's role in all of this.
Right. Despite that, that disturbing audio evidence
Yeah.
and the conflicting witness statements, she was never charged with anything.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people feel that she got off scot-free.
Her lack of accountability is definitely one of the most unsettling aspects of this case.
Yeah.
The evidence, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, from the audio to the testimonies of people who knew her,
Right.
it strongly suggests that she played a significant role in escalating the conflict,
Yeah.
possibly even encouraging, the violence that ultimately led to Shane's death.
It's hard to understand how she escaped any legal consequences, really, given the weight of the evidence against her.
Yeah.
It just adds to the sense that justice wasn't fully served in this case.
It does, and this sense of injustice, it's further amplified when when you consider the statements from those who knew Kelly personally.
Right.
People like her ex-husband and even her own brother.
Oh.
They expressed genuine fear of her.
Really?
Yeah, painting a picture of someone who could be, manipulative and controlling.
So it's like a completely different side of Kelly emerges through their accounts.
Yeah.
A side that aligns with the suspicions raised by the evidence in the case.
Absolutely.
And then there's Tucker,
Right.
who ultimately receives a relatively light sentence, 6 years and 3 months for taking a life.
Yeah, the DA insisted, that the plea deal was fair.
Right.
Citing the complexities of the case, but it's a hard pill to swallow for those who believe she should have faced a murder conviction.
It's certainly a complex and controversial outcome.
It is.
The case leaves us with more questions than answers.
Yeah.
This lingering sense of unease about whether justice was truly achieved.
It's a story that makes you question everything, right?
Yeah.
power of perception, the
Right.
manipulation of truth, and that blurry line between reality and performance.
It's a story that really sticks with you,
It does.
making you think long after you've heard all the details.
Absolutely.
And I think it raises some important questions about the impact of this whole ordeal on the people involved.
Yeah.
What about Shane's family and friends?
Right.
How do they cope with the loss
Yeah.
and the way he's been portrayed throughout this whole process?
I mean, the ripple effects of this event, they extend far beyond the courtroom. We see the pain and frustration of, Shane's brother and girlfriend
Yeah.
who feel that justice was not served.
Right.
They struggle with the way he's been portrayed as an unsympathetic victim,
Yeah.
a portrayal that might have influenced the outcome of the case.
Yeah, it's a reminder that behind all the legal arguments and the courtroom drama,
Yeah.
there are real people whose lives have been just shattered by this tragedy.
Right. Absolutely.
And what about Tucker? Where does she go from here? I mean, can she ever return to acting after, being at the center of such a public scandal?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Some people believe that she should, step away from acting altogether, distance herself from the very thing that some argue, contributed to this tragedy. Others think that she should be able to, move on, rebuild her life and her career.
Right.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, really.
Yeah, it makes you think about the nature of, forgiveness and redemption and second chances.
Absolutely.
And speaking of second chances, you uncovered some interesting details about Tucker's past.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it turns out that even her name, Tucker, isn't her real name.
Really?
It's another layer of performance,
Wow.
another role she's chosen to play.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And it raises some intriguing questions about identity,
Yeah.
especially for actors who spend their lives inhabiting different personas. I mean, where does the performance end and the real person, begin?
Right, exactly.
I mean, was this blurring of identities a factor in the events that unfolded? I mean, it's a question that goes beyond the specifics of this case.
No.
It touches on something much deeper about the human psyche.
Yeah, it's a fascinating psychological puzzle. And it's hard not to think about that unsettling parallel between, the film From the Dark and the real life events.
Right.
That scene where Tucker's character commits a violent act.
Right.
I mean, it's chillingly similar to what happened on the ranch.
I mean, it is a disturbing coincidence. It makes you question the relationship between art and reality.
Yeah.
Did the role influence her actions in some way? Did she draw inspiration from the script, or is it just a random, albeit unsettling, alignment of events? It's a question that we may never be able to answer definitively.
Yeah, it's a reminder that sometimes real life can be stranger than fiction.
Absolutely.
And as we reach the end of this deep dive, I'm left with a lot to ponder.
Yeah, me too.
What does this case say about the power of performance? Can the ability to act, to convincingly portray emotions, can it influence not only how we perceive others, but also, as we've seen in this case, potentially impact the course of justice?
I mean, it's a sobering thought.
It is.
This case, I mean, it's a tangled web of conflicting narratives,
Yeah.
questionable motives, and the blurred lines between reality and performance. And
Right.
it reminds us that truth can be elusive.
It can.
Perception can be manipulated, and
Yeah.
sometimes, the answers we seek are never truly clear cut.
It's a story that stays with you long after the details fade.
It does.
A reminder that the human experience is full of complexities and contradictions.
Contradictions. Yeah.
We may never know the full truth of what happened on that Oregon ranch,
Yeah, that's true.
but by exploring the evidence and the different perspectives,
Mhm.
I think we gained a deeper understanding of the case and the questions it raises about justice and identity and the power of perception.
For sure.
And that's what this deep dive is all about, unpacking these complex issues, exploring different angles, and leaving you with more to think about long after the conversation ends. So thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.